Growing deeper. The theme for July is rolling in the deep, and today's topic is go deep. Ernest Holmes wrote, "No human has ever plumbed the depths of either the conscious or the subjective life. In both directions, we reach out to infinity, and since we cannot encompass infinity, we shall always be expanding and always enlarging our capacity to know and to experience." And we have an affirmation up here. You see that affirmation? We're going to all say that together. I embrace the depths of my soul, knowing I contain multitudes. Blessings and welcome to Reverend Dr. Kathleen Johnson.
Yes. Yeah, it's turned on. Okay, there we go. So here we are again on this adventure, this amazing adventure of life, and understanding that we are multidimensional beings, and that multidimensionality is infinite. The depths of our being are infinite, infinite in scope and infinite in possibility. So I hope that we not only have a whale of a good time, I also hope that these puns that I'm about to use take you deeper and higher in consciousness. So here's the first one. Why do whales meditate? To dive deep into a state of well-being. Okay, and how do whales communicate? Shell phones. All right. Well, whale, I hope that these ocean jokes are not too deep for you. Okay, so moving on to this idea of oceans and depth. Do you know that during World War II, those who operated the sonars, the new sonar systems, had decided that the ocean was only 300 to 400 meters deep at its deepest. And do you know how that happened? Listen to this. This is so interesting. At 300 to 400 feet in depth is where bazillions of fish reside. And they have they have air bladders, not whale, but they have air bladders. And the air bladders would reflect the sonar back, and they thought this was the bottom of the ocean, but it wasn't. It was a bunch of bazillions of fish air bladders. And these air bladders are really interesting too. What they do is they help fish calibrate where they want to maintain their depth in the ocean. It helps them to stay and maintain the depth that they want at any point in time. So it's just a beautiful metaphor for what we're going to be talking about today, which is how to not only go deep, but to maintain that depth as we move through our lives, so that we come from a place of inspiration and infinite possibility and infinite potentiality in each and every moment. So here's the truth, though. I want to share the truth about the ocean. I mean, just to give you a sense of it. Rather than 300 to 400 meters, the ocean averages 2.3 miles, which is 3,600 meters. And at its deepest, they are saying it's 7 miles deep. Think about that, 7 miles deep, which is about 11,000 meters. So that illusion of which, you think about living in our surface mind, that illusion that that's as deep as it is something that we all need to transcend. And we have these beautiful metaphors on our planet that help us to understand there are great depths to our being, just as there are great depths to the ocean. Ernest Holmes, of course, taught about these infinite depths, and I love this foreword by Jean Houston. It's in the Science of Mind textbook. This is just a short version of what she said, but she said, Ernest Holmes was one of the first to direct us to what is to be found in the vast ecology of inner space. In his scope of understanding and application, he prepared the field for the revolution in mind and brain research that was to come. As we go within, we can access the depth structures of our being and build bridges to the great realm within, wherein lies the dynamic, I love her wording, the dynamic designs that form and reform our reality. Whew! Powerful. And then she says, the science of mind shows us how to be active and creative citizens in a universe and an innerverse richer than all previous imaginings. Just feel the expansiveness of that. And Jean Houston, how many of you know who Jean Houston is? Jean Houston, I went to her mystery school some time ago, and Jean Houston is one of the great visionaries of our time in the New Thought teachings and beyond. And she and Barbara Marx Hubbard were considered to be the great visionaries of our time. So Jean Houston, she rocks. I'm telling you, she rocks. I spent about a year, it was like one weekend per month for a full year in her mystery school, and it was really powerful, very life-altering for me. So then how do we not only go deep, and I think you already know, those of you who've been in the teachings for quite a long time, how do we go deep and remain in that depth, even amidst of all of the distractions in the media, on TV, on our devices that we use, the social media? How do we maintain that depth of consciousness that helps us to navigate all of this with a deep sense of centeredness in the truth of who we are and a deep sense of the creative power that we can bring to the mix of creation that's taking place? How do we do that? Well, we know there are many, many different tools and principles and techniques that we teach in this spiritual teaching called Science of Mind and also New Thought, Ancient Wisdom, that help us to grow deeper, to go deeper. The classes are a great way to plumb the depths of your being. And so if you haven't taken a class, or if it's been a while, or even if you just took one, I invite you to plumb the depths with Candace and with your fellow classmates. There's something very powerful about being in a classroom and all sharing wisdom and growing deeper together. So I encourage you to do that. So there are some beautiful lessons that we can take from the sperm whales. So last time I talked about dolphins, this time the sperm whales. And sperm whales are I actually have 3 different things that I wanted to talk about: breathe and go deep, embrace community and go deep, and being centered in depth through spiritual practice. So breathe and go deep. Sperm whales can dive to the depths of 2 miles. Think about that. They're able to take a huge breath that sustains them for 90 minutes underwater, that allows them to go down deep because that's where their food is that they like, and to come back and think of all the different levels of pressure and everything that they have to go through. It's mind-boggling how their bodies are designed. So 90% they're able to replace 90% of their breath so that they can sustain themselves 90 minutes under the ocean. It's powerful. So I, equate this to what we know about the breath. We have a breath work teacher right over here, Candace. It's so powerful to remember that our mental health, our spiritual well-being depends on taking deep breaths, slow, deep breaths. And what happens when we get stressed? Anybody know? Shallow breathing, which does not serve us. So that's why we're taught that when you notice yourself getting into a state of stress, stop and breathe. Slow your breath down. And it's even more powerful, which I'm sure is what happens with of course, they've probably used up 90% of their breath, but it's very powerful to exhale. And I learned this lesson from my vocal coach some time ago, is exhale and get all that dead air that's down at the bottom of the lungs out. So he would say, exhale, and then pump your stomach and get the rest out, and then breathe in. And then you replenish yourself with a whole bunch of new, fresh air. So something to remember. Pump it all out first, and then take it in. Be like the sperm whale that takes in 90% new, fresh air instead of fresh air on top of stale air. Very powerful thing. Let's practice that right now. Let's practice breathing out first through your mouth, and then and just notice how you feel. Ooh, I feel like really light and airy right now after that. It's a beautiful practice and something to remember. So breathe and go deep. Prepares you prepares your body temple in a state of relaxation so that it's easier to go deep. Embrace community and go deep. So sperm whales are in the deepest parts of the ocean, obviously, because they're used to diving deep and hanging out in that area. They also live in matrilineal groups. And these matrilineal groups belong to other matrilineal groups who form a clan. And these different clans are distinguished by certain behaviors and ways of communicating. They call them dialects. They actually have different sperm whale dialects, how they communicate with each other. So they have these very cohesive communities in which they hang out. Again, another beautiful metaphor for us. Well, here's something very interesting. Because of their ability to communicate with each other, and also they can communicate over really long distances with each other. It travels through the water and they pick the information up. Back when the historical records show that sperm whales in the North Pacific very quickly learned from each other how to fend off the harpoons of the whalers. So within a few years, 58% of the strikes did not work by the harpooners. They noticed a huge shift. And what we're knowing is that the whales were able to communicate with each other. They're so closely connected and say, stay away from this big thing that's floating in the water, or whatever. They communicated to each other and then saved lives of each other. So it helps to be in the influence of those who uplift. You know, that's the beauty of spiritual community. I mean, look around. These are people that you have chosen to be in community with that are interested in being a beneficial presence, interested in showing up as love, as peace, as joy, as wisdom, as intelligence. What a blessing this is. I know when my sister came to visit, That's one of the things. I mean, she's looking forward, of course, to being with me and our family, but she is really also looking forward to being a vital part of our community. She's taken the classes online. She's seen the online presentations of our community, the live streaming. However, there's something really wonderful about being in community, being in connection, physical connection with each other that you cannot translate online. And so that's why it's something really important that we've co-created together. So I want to acknowledge each and every one of you for being a vital part of that. So embracing community and going deep. We know that when we embrace spiritual teachings, and these are universal spiritual teachings, science of mind. Ernest Holmes drew from all the different world religions, philosophy, quantum science. He was looking for what are the universal principles that apply to everyone that we can use in our lives, and spiritual practices that are drawn from a lot of different areas too that allow us to go deeper and to maintain that depth as we move through our lives, and how powerful it is to be in a class, to be in a circle, to be in community or workshop, and to go deeper together, support each other, and going deeper and maintaining that state of consciousness. So what does this do, this going deeper? It helps us to thrive in a field of love and peace and joy, a field of all possibility. It helps us to build resilience and inner strength and vision, this vision that we hold, kind of a generic but universal vision of a world that works for all heaven on earth. It's like we're all pointing the same direction, wanting to be a beneficial presence. Embracing community is so powerful in going deep and maintaining that depth. And finally, centered in depth through spiritual practice. Sperm whales have a powerful guidance system, just like we do. We know that there are other ways that they're guided, but we also know that they have on their foreheads, on their heads, something called spermaceti, which is a substance that senses changes of temperature and depth, and also helps them sense the distance of objects in front of them as they're in those really deep depths where it's very dark. So how about our inner guidance system? We are blessed with an inner guidance system, but what happens when we're not tuning into that, but instead we're tuning into all the dramas in the news, or dramas in relationships, or what other kind of dramas are going on? When we spend too much time tuned into that and talking about that, we're actually blocking the way of our inner guidance system. And so spiritual practice allows us to get away from all the distractions, to sit and to go deep. And some people have different ways of meditating. Some people find that movement meditation, whether it's yoga or Tai Chi, works better for them. So I just want you to know there are different ways of meditating. But the idea of meditation is to come into the present moment, to drop away all the distractions, and to tune in to the very depths of our being, where that spiritual sustenance, that spiritual substance, that field of all possibility and answers to everything that we desire resides. So if you're looking for answers, dive deep within and listen. Give yourself the time to do that. Psalm 47, verse 2 says, deep calls to deep. When we dive deep, we connect with the depth of our being, because we are one. I have one final thing that I would like to end with, which is this beautiful quote by Ernest Holmes in this thing called life. He said, "We must learn to live by inspiration. That means we should let the spiritual depths of our being flow through our conversations and into our acts. Our whole purpose is to make the intellect an instrument of the Spirit. We must become artists in living. To live by inspiration means to sense the divine touch in everything. Sense the divine touch in everything. To enter into the spirit of things, to enter into the joy of living. When the world feels chaotic, it's tempting to lose our center. I really do get that. I noticed it in myself. So let us let our hearts lead instead of letting the headlines lead. Okay? And turn within and go deep. And so it is.